Hello and welcome to this NEC webinar. We are here today with Helen Sturdy of NHS England. So Client of the Year as well, 2023, which is a fantastic achievement. So I'm John Welsh, NEC User Group Chair, and yeah, fantastic to have you all with us today. Helen and I are going to have hopefully a really enriched conversation about NHSE's construction, their estates, and of course ProCure23 as the route to market for all of the trusts which NHSE manage. So Helen, again, thank you, welcome, really appreciate your time today. I guess firstly for me, I'd just like to explore a little bit more about yourself, really. If you could kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's a real honour to be here today and talk about obviously how we, the NHS, uniquely deliver construction and how, you know, in my role, it's very much around fostering that creativity and inspiring and motivating all the stakeholders to work towards a shared vision of trying to build the best that we can for the NHS. I started out at 16. I was an original apprentice, so I started out on an apprenticeship and then sort of started to work in consultancy. So I started building and designing hospitals. So I was a consulting engineer, became a chartered engineer, and then from consultancy, I ended up working directly within the hospital, so leading in the estates and facilities management side of things and capital projects delivering within the trusts. And then I moved back into consultancy and ended up being a project director for healthcare for a while. And then sort of wanted to review where I wanted to be, etc., and sort of using all my skills as best as I could for the NHS. So that's why I've ended up where I am, which is great because you know, I can really sort of bring all those different areas to fruition, from the technical to the contract management to the project delivery side, which actually supports the NHS to deliver their construction needs.
Yeah, wow, fantastic. So like real lived experience, as you say, working in different areas right across the health sector, which, you know, is only going to add to the benefit of all users, to the strategy of P23 as well, and the legacy too.
Yeah, and it does. And the other thing I do, you know, on the side, which is really nice, is you know, I'm a fellow of a few institutes, you know, SIBS, facilities management, project management and stuff. But one of the ones that I particularly work actively in is reviewing the memberships and the charterships coming through for the Institute of Healthcare and Estates Management. I'm quite passionate about that. Found them a very good institute to work with and be in, and that's where I got my chartered engineering through. And it's really good to be able to support people that are wanting to go on that journey, and we're very much about how can we help this person take the next steps when we're reviewing their memberships and stuff. And the other thing is being a STEM ambassador, and actually really supporting young people to be able to sort of aspire to realise as well that the NHS isn't just got apprenticeships in clinical side of things. We've got apprenticeships from engineering, facilities management, etc. So there's lots of opportunities, and also it's not only just for the young people who are reskilling and stuff can actually end up going into the NHS and getting apprenticeships and stuff as well. So it's a nice area to be in as well.
Vast, broad as well, as you say. I think people, would default to think of the NHS in its typical way that we use it as a sort of patients, but you're right, it's far broader than that, isn't it? So I guess that takes us on to ProCure23 then, or P23 as we might phrase it as during this conversation, and how that all sort of started, or how this iteration of your ProCure framework started.
Yeah, so I'm very lucky to be able to help the NHS by having the ProCure framework under my remit. So it really helps me sort of bring a lot of the governance, good advice, good project management, and supporting them to have successful projects. But it really sort of started out because there was issues with procurement not being streamlined. There was a lot of adversity at the time. There was inconsistencies in delivery, and there was a lot of litigation within the NHS at the time because of project delivery, etc. So this is why we started to sort of focus, and it's in its 20th iteration now as ProCure23, but it started 20 odd years ago with ProCure 21, and that was the real driver behind it was actually to change and improve that delivery, and actually sort of change the way we do things. So it very much centered around the NEC contracts, which were fairly new at the time, and actually bringing that thinking and that spirit of the contract, that collaboration approach to actually sort of really get a framework together and start to develop a framework that could actually really focus on that value for money, quality, and that patient-centered care that we really wanted to do with the NHS. So it really sort of, as well, how could we use a framework to really sort of innovate and drive more effectiveness with the partners that we brought on board with us as well. And we've really seen that really come to fruition over the years. And yeah, certainly NEC and ProCure23 very similar minded, very much a marriage made in heaven, I would say, very much about relationships, and which is really what is which was what is driven it forward into many years of success.
Yeah, of course. Well, as you say, 20 years now, 20 plus years in its existence as an approach. And I remember when I was working in P21, as it was, as you say, when it came out, it was novel, it was unique, and it was always, I guess, different parts of the industry just stopping and looking to see how this would perform, because the principles of the procure approach, were everything everybody was trying to achieve. So I'm pretty sure that continues today, and it's impressive to watch and see. And I guess within that as well, you've obviously got supply chain partners. So these may be existing relationships or lengthy relationships over the different frameworks that you have. But to your point, the ethos of what you're trying to achieve and have continued to is around that partnership. So how is this kind of P23 performing, and on that basis, how are the PSCPs or supply chain partners helping with that?
Certainly the PSCPs are very much part of the team. I really actually love working with them, and I love it when we're all sort of sharing knowledge or challenging ourselves and stuff. And we have quite a good framework that we work within. So our governance process, we have a partnership board, which is very much sort of that final challenge. But under that, there is very much a lot of working groups and stuff where we're looking at what are the gaps, how can we help inform better the NHS, where do they need our support for that consistent approach across how they're delivering projects and stuff. So we've been looking at how we develop digital strategies. We've developed an MMC toolkit which really helps on the standardization piece. We're looking at the net zero, so the building standard has come out at the moment, so we're looking at actually how can we help create an executive summary around that sort of automatically pulls all the right information together to give you that, and that layperson that overall view of actually what you are actually achieving going through this process and stuff. And obviously this all then goes in to support the business case process and speeding up that business case process, which P23 has that advantage of being able to support that. And And the other thing is things like the derogations document, which we did recently, just standardizing, getting consistency, getting a common working approach is really, really important. And that's something we do very much with our partners. And I'm very, very lucky. I've got a really passionate team who all work really hard in the background to sort of keep these projects delivering. We're monitoring the projects, we're looking at them all the way from conception through to delivery and beyond. How are they performing? How can we help them? Are there any red flags that we need to sort of talk with the partners with and the trust with, and make sure everything's doing as it should do, and moving forward in the right direction for the trust eventually, and obviously the patients. It started, the latest iteration started in March 22, and we're certainly delivering you know, sort of 6 months ahead of where we expected to be. So we're on about sort of 2.5 billion now within that framework. And the trajectory that we've got and the pipeline that we've got is looking really healthy. So we're looking at sort of double that already. So we're really sort of pushing forward and pushing those boundaries to sort of really, really deliver. And for us, a lot of it is we are more than a framework. We are the NHS delivering for the NHS. We are their construction arm. We are their support network. And therefore, you know, we do look at all these different areas and develop all these different areas as well. And it's really to help them, you know, providing guidance. We've got lots of informative guidance that's there, all free to use. All our projects that we develop, we've got project share. So if you're a trust that's going to go and look at a cancer care centre, go and have a look on the ProCure website and say, actually, there's half a dozen, you know, 12, whatever here that look very similar to what I want to deliver. So it's all about saving costs, time and money and efficiency. And we're seeing that we're seeing that real driver coming through around that, but also for us, it's how we really support the processes and drive those efficiencies and standardization and consistency, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's you know, even over the 20 years, you've continually improved, but that hasn't stopped now in its current guise.
We're always pushing.
Yeah,
What's next? Where's the gaps?
Yeah. Oh no, it's really good to hear, and absolutely the right thing in my view. So I mean, I guess just on that then, there are yourselves. To your point, this isn't a faceless framework here. This is absolutely a team of individuals working for the NHS, with the NHS, as you say, which the trusts can see and experience and benefit from as well. So how, in terms of engagement with the trusts, you know, how do you find that? Are they kind of, I guess, pseudo partners to this relationship as well?
Yeah, definitely, you know, and it's about it's about supporting them in their ways forward, and sometimes we'll go into trust and support them through their processes as well. The PSCPs are really knowledgeable though, you know, they know the processes, they know all the stakeholder engagement that needs to happen, they've got the tools. And that's what ProCure23 gives them. We give them the tools and say, this is the tools, this is what will inform really good decision making and stuff. And for me, you know, the whole partnership is a really positive one. You know, really committed to the framework as a team, and very much embodies that spirit of the contract which the NEC likes to deliver.
Well, funny you should mention the NEC.
Yeah.
I guess then let's just explore that a little bit more if we can. So why NEC then?
For me, you know, I mean, I've worked across a lot of different contracts over the years, but the NEC just, you know, when I sort of dropped into doing the NEC stuff, it really emulated with me and my own values, I suppose. I very much find it I love the whole collaboration approach. I love the whole you know, the back-to-back common language, that it actually goes all the way through the supply chain, and that you can actually, everybody knows what they're doing. The language is really clear and consistent. you know, that ease of use with the language in particular and stuff. But yeah, certainly that back-to-back contracting approach I think is really good. The whole thing of the arbitration, which we do in P23, we will come in and sort of stand in and sort of mitigate situations and stuff if they arise. And so often there's things that arise, we come in, we do a bit of mitigation, and we come out and in a positive way. It's also as well, because of its approach and its approach to things like arbitration, etc. You know, we've saved a fortune, millions on litigation that actually through using this contract approach as well. A lot is known up front as well with your costs and stuff. Some people think, oh, well, we'll go to a different contract, we'll save money, but sometimes, usually often further down the line, they find that actually they haven't, or there's other issues, or things are just moved forward further down the line than where they were, etc. I really like the standardised approach. So we have, for the NHS, we standardise all our contracts and stuff. We fill in as much as we can for them. So we've been able to really standardise the NEC contracts. But also as well, the NEC contracts don't need a great lot of tweaking. You know, it's very clear they're really good standing on their own, and you don't want to mess around with them too much. Stick with the standard, stick with what our standard suits the NHS. And you will deliver those successful projects, is really sort of the message that we like to try and get across. And both very much have great governance processes and stuff that really do drive that delivery. You know, I feel the approach will also put us in good stead with the Building Safety Act and all the requirements around that. So I'm leading on a lot of that work within NHS England at the moment. You know, and that whole capturing change and what's happening. So we're actually revamping everything to suit that at the moment, and having conversations with the building safety regulator at the moment to get the clarity around the nuances that are healthcare. So we're getting them to sort of agree in principle what the advice is, because it isn't clear. But we really need the BSR's backing, and we're hoping to do a national webinar within the next month with them on board, to all the trusts, to be able to support them as well in their understanding on that. But I think, again, as I say, I think luckily with the NEC contracts, I think it really puts us in good stead. And part of it as well is the project supervisor, which comes under the NEC contract, and how their role, or that quality role, I think again there's an alignment there, which we'll see more and more explored as well. So yeah, I think the NEC contracts are fantastic, and I'm a real advocate for using them as well.
Yeah, good. And each of the points you've raised there is that, for me, that common theme around proactive sort of project management in approaches, and love to hear that you're taking that proactive approach with the BSR as well. Getting on the front foot around implications of Building Safety Act, as you say, on health assets and projects. And yeah, of course, the role of the supervisor can play in that as well. Yeah, I like that. Really good, thank you. So I guess then, from a sustainability and social responsibility perspective, then ProCure23 obviously did deliver successfully and has done so far in terms of probably what I'd say the standard project requirements, but from a kind of sustainability and social responsibility perspective, then what does ProCure23 and NHSE commit to do and actually deliver on?
Do you know what, we've just pulled together some from our partners have just supported us in pulling together some of the social aspects that we do deliver, and it is really interesting. So we collect a lot of the metrics and stuff, and you know, we're able to, with our processes, so we have design assurance processes, we have the net zero building standard. We were the ones that were doing the beta standard, so our partners will, with ourselves, we will review the standards that are coming out with NHSE and support what actually that means for the market, and actually advise back. So and actually start to sort of use it and sort of see how the functionality works. So we really are committed in that way as well. So, you know, we and all the partners are involved in all the policy updates, etc. So we're actually sort of getting that market intelligence through P23, being involved in being able to support what we're delivering as NHS England as well. Some of the really nice things that came back as well was we don't just look at you know, how we spend in the local community, how we drive the economics in the local community when we're building there. Looking at local workforce, how we can support them, bringing apprentices into schemes and stuff, and you know, we collate all the percentages of apprentices and working days that they've been involved on various schemes. We also, you know, they're also doing charity fairs and charity runs for the projects that they're involved in, volunteering work, and even pioneering work placements and stuff. You know, there was some really nice ones recently around creating leadership programs for schools, and supporting local businesses and enterprises. And it's just really nice to sort of see that aspect of it. You know, that is something I'm a real advocate for. So it's really nice to see all the work that they're doing in the background around social, just in building a building, but all that extra that goes into it about how they really connect with the community and what they're doing as well.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, doesn't it? I think I'm always in awe, you know, when people can respond in that way to that type of question, because I think as an industry we do so well, for me anyway, from a sustainability and social value and corporate responsibility perspective, that I don't think as an industry we probably talk about it or shout about it enough.
No.
Because there's so many good things going on, and as you've proven, the ProCure framework and the PSCPs do that. Just before I go on to, I guess, some more specific examples around sharing of knowledge and ideas amongst the supply chain partners, I just want to remind people that we do have a Q&A function. Or a chat function. Well, it's Q&A, isn't it? Let's use the Q&A function. If you want to ask Helen any questions, or myself, then please enter them in there. I will keep my eye on them and as best as I can try and answer the majority of them as we go. So yeah, please encourage yourselves to think of some questions, and we'll look to respond to them. So I guess just on that then, Helen, examples then of sort of sharing of knowledge, good ideas, etc., is not just from a social value sustainability perspective. You know, you've got some really competent supply chain partners here that I'm sure would all benefit from hearing what good ideas, examples, and things that they happily share and work on together.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and yeah, it does make me smile when you know, I have a client who recently came with me up to Salford, and where we've got the first level access helipad that's just been built there, normally built out in the oil rigs, but of course, you know, we're suddenly building it in the middle of a sort of an urban environment. And suddenly, you know, there's church spires and stuff around, and how does that downforce work? What happens if suddenly the helicopter catches on fire? Can you imagine what it's like to just sort of suddenly douse that out with it when you're on top of a building? And actually, what's that going to mean to everything below it? So there's a solution, a foam solution, and how the drainage works and stuff. It was really, really fascinating. But the client turned around to me and said, do you know what is brilliant is we've brought two PSCPs together, two partners together, and we're about to build another one in Dorset, and they've come to take the learning off the one people in Salford. So we brought both the partners together to talk about that learning and that shared learning, and how they need, what were the what were the issues, what were the difficulties. There's things around language and stuff, you know, there was things around, you know, anti-vibration mounts coming from Italy and things like that. And the specialists, as I say, are people that work on the oil rigs, and that's where they've been built before, and how you have to bring the helicopter people in and stuff, because they're taking that massive responsibility around the air ambulance landing, etc. So it was really, really interesting. But it's like the client said, this is going to save me so much time and money and everything. And what a brilliant day, you know, really enjoyed the day as I did, just sort of going through that shared learning piece. You know, and other aspects is, excuse me, things like at IHEAM, you know, we go and talk at IHEAM, but I don't talk. It's not the Helen show. It's not the you know, it's the ProCure23, it's the partnership. So I stand up there with the partners and the supply chain that have all got involved in these developments, and applaud them. You know, and as I say, we've got some fantastic, we've got a standard components catalogue coming out shortly as well, which all the supply chain are involved in reviewing all that with us and stuff. And we've got some great components coming up, which saves a lot of money. It doesn't matter what size the project is, you'll pay the same amount for those particular products and stuff coming out. So there's a lot around that sharing of knowledge and working together. And even in some of the working groups where somebody's gone, I'm not too sure of this, and somebody's gone, well, I'll come and help you. We'll take it offline and I'll come and run through that particular toolkit with you or whatever, which always, you know, I just think that's amazing. And obviously the pinnacle of it all is Nightingales and Surge Hubs. And, you know, when I got asked last year, what can you do in 9 weeks and what can you do in 3? These are the people that I go and talk to, say, right, what can we do? How can we help? And they're really keen to help and really keen to support. They showed it in the Nightingales, they've showed it with the Surge Hubs, etc. It's really nice how we're able to actually deliver, and we did deliver. We came up with solutions and we provided those solutions to the NHS.
Well, and it was clear to see by everybody, wasn't it, at that time as well. So yeah, no, well done, congratulations on that specific time, which was, yeah, a stress for us all. So lovely to see how kind of you responded and the supply chain partners responded, yeah, in an emergency, in a crisis situation like that, which is fantastic. There's a couple of questions coming in now, so I'll keep my eye on those and see where we get to by the end, but I'll ask any if I feel are relevant to the topic of the question, where I can. So I guess just moving back to NEC then for a second. So we obviously have the users group, you know, lots of members involved in the users group, right across the spectrum of our construction industry, up and down the supply chain as well. So I just wondered, from your perspective then, how has being an NEC users group member sort of helped you?
Yeah, I think it's really great. You know, one of the biggest things for me is the community, and that sharing of knowledge. You know, I mean, you use the contract on a regular basis. You know, it's like policies as well. I've been involved in lots of those in the past and stuff, but you don't know them all off by heart, and it's really great to sort of look at them and talk about them as well, and have that be able to talk. So that even the people I did my NEC training with, you know, we all got together and sort of shared knowledge and keep in touch, or through the app. The app's really good. It's got a community piece on there. It's got lots of information guidance on there that you can access, you know. So I find that the app is really useful. Even the podcasts are great. But also as well, you know, the things like the newsletters and stuff that you get. I had a really great one last week, which very much was around the motorways and stuff, and how they'd proven early contractor engagement, you know, X22 had been utilised, and how that had saved them cost, time, you know, on the project. And I just found that really insightful, and you're getting that global viewpoint of how people are really using it, best practice, etc. And I think that's really good to see. And it was massive for us to win the Client of the Year. We went down there ourselves, CCS, Crown Commercial Service, all our partners, and we won. And it was a massive accolade to the team, you know, the team that have been really passionate. And even my predecessor went as well, which was great because, you know, he's been involved in the framework for so many years, driving this passion forward, that it was really nice to see him be able to go and collect that award as well. So yeah, one of my favorite pictures of 2023 is all of them there with the great big smiles on their faces with the award. And yes, I was really proud of that moment in particular.
Quite right.
Yeah.
Quite right too. Yeah, and it was, as you say, it was lovely to see your predecessor there as well, who played a significant part over the last 20 years of the ProCure frameworks, definitely. I'm just going to jump to a question then, because it's specific to NEC, if that's okay, Helen. So the question is around the use of early warning notices, and there's some feedback and a perception on a particular project that early warning notices potentially are contractually aggressive. You know, however, in our conversation, you know, we've talked about the P23 ethos, and the use of its early warning process under NEC is really positive and a collaborative approach. So the question from Stephen is wanting to know, do you think that the term early warning notice is in itself aggressive, and should NEC consider renaming this to be less confrontational?
For me, I'll go back to when.
For you.
No, no, I think early warning notices, it says it does what it says on the tin. It is about an early warning. It's a heads up. It might not happen, but we just need to be aware of it. For me, when I was back in my project director role, you know, for me, comms was really important, and actually understanding what are the issues and stuff, and making sure that the communication between all the various parties on the particular aspect was maintained. And if it became a compensation event, it became a compensation event. But sometimes they don't, and it's just sometimes you can actually mitigate that. It's almost like a risk that you're looking at, and then you start to look at, how can I mitigate this? What are the ways around it, or what do we need to do? So it's just really a flag. And it's a flag to say we need to be aware of this. What can we be doing about it? So for me, I think early warning notice is good. It's about applying it properly, having those early warning meetings. So for me, I'd be weekly working with the project leads and sort of saying, right, okay, what are the early warnings we need to be aware of? You know, what are the issues, what are the risks, we'd go through lots of different things. And and then I would also have that stakeholder engagement, as in the trust side of things as well. So it'd be the trust, the users, the people within the wards or whatever, where we were doing the work, and actually sort of discussing with them where it applied to them, what their side of the version was and how they felt it was as a risk or an issue or whatever. So for me, it's very much about being a flag, and it's a really good thing to have that flag there and actually start to sort of be aware of it. But the key thing for me is being aware of it as early as you can, so you can start to mitigate and move forward with whatever you need to around that particular issue that's been raised.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's down to the usage of it, and if the provision in the contract's used effectively, then it's there to help mitigate situations, isn't it, as you've just set out. So yeah, interesting question. I'm going to stick with the questions if that's okay. So
fine.
we've got one from Graham, who has thanks for the discussion. Thank you, Graham. So he's interested in the point you made before around standardized contracts, and whether that extends to works information or employees requirements specific to healthcare NEC contracts. so he's less familiar with ProCure23 based up in Scotland. But it's worth, if you can, just bringing out a bit more around the standardisation approach that you have, I think, in P23 approach.
Okay, so we use the contracts. So we have 2 contracts that we work on. We've always worked with the engineering construction contract option C for the last sort of 20 years, until we became ProCure23, when we actually introduced the short form version and option A, the lump sum as well, which was for sort of more of the obviously smaller scale schemes. And this was to give some different options to clients. But what we wanted to do is make sure we standardize those contracts, we fill in as much data as possible. We do have specific boilerplate clauses and stuff that are specific to the healthcare NHS that we added into that particular process. And as I say, we do review it. It's everything we do. So all our toolkits that we give out, which are standardized to be used in projects, etc., as well as our contracts, etc., they aren't set in stand. Set in stand. Get my teeth back in. Set in sand. They evolve, and that's the main thing. Is we might produce something, but as a working group, we will then be looking with the commercial working group for contracts. How do these need to evolve? How do we need to improve them, or what are the issues that we need to deal with in order to sort of make sure that these work absolutely right for the NHS? So that's what we tend to do with the standardized contracts. They are reviewed and updated on a regular basis, and that's something that we work through with CCS as well, the Crown Commercial Service, and we all agree what that should look like, and with all the commercial working group. And to be fair, the commercial working group is one of those things that's open to a lot of consultants out there. So we've been doing a lot of myth busting with consultants and stuff, and saying, come to our commercial working group, which is with our partners and that, and we have those commercial discussions and sort of work through, even with splinter groups, around actually what are the nuances that we need to look at around the particular issue that may be raised at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully that answered your question.
I'm just going to build on it a little bit. Okay, only because of, Helen, I know you, I know what you guys do from a P23 perspective, and I'm also aware of the standardized designs or repeatable rooms concept that you have there, and I think whilst that, to answer the question, or to the one of the points in the question, whilst that isn't the standardized works information per se, what it is a standard design for particular elements that are used right across the trusts and the project. So I think that's of significant benefit as well. So yeah, credit to what you're doing in that space.
I mean, I think the works information tends to be very specific to the trust as well, so that it's their particular local policies and things like that that are brought in as well. So we tend to not necessarily standardize on the works information as such, because I say that tends to be a lot more localized.
That's right. Okay, good, thank you. I guess just back to our sort of conversation then for a little bit, if that's all right. You obviously, well, maybe not obviously to some on the call, you've recently visited Hong Kong.
I did.
Yeah, to present and deliver the keynote at the Hong Kong NEC Users Conference. So can you just talk to us a little bit about that? How was your experience over there, and maybe what did you learn, and what could NEC users learn perhaps from your trip?
Yeah, for me, what a wonderful place, wonderful people, made me feel so welcome, and I was really well looked after the whole time. Such a safe place to live, very community orientated as a place. Everyone sort of looking out each other. You could go out at 4 o'clock in the evening and it was dark or whatever, and you'd be perfectly safe and stuff, or in the middle of the night even. Somebody said if you wanted to go for a run, you'd be fine. So I thought it was really interesting, but so tall, the buildings are so tall, I'd never been before. And it's like being a little bug in a forest, you know, where it's just like, wow. And everything's so, they're very meticulous about how they how clean everything is, and everything's sort of traveling distance, sort of 30 minutes. They've got a fantastic underground. It's immaculate. And what rush hour was a dream. You know, it was so organized. They're so well organized, you know, that actually, you know, it was really great getting across town. But from a contract NEC point of view, there were some really interesting things. They're looking at delivering a £30 billion infrastructure programme over the next 10 years. They haven't got a framework. They'd really like to do a framework. So there was a lot of learning about how we do our framework, and we will continue to share knowledge because they're really great on smart building technology. You know, some of their innovative stuff they're really good on. So, you know, there was a real thing about them really wanting to understand how we do our framework and how that can support them to deliver. And certainly some of the issues they have similar issues to us around primary care. You know, so examples of everybody goes into hospital because it'll cost them $100 to go to the GP and $100 to go to the hospital. So everybody just goes to the hospital. So it's just things like, you know, capacity pressures similar to us. They've got a very aging workforce, so they've got resource issues as well. Health and safety was their biggest issue. So we're very interested in the Building Safety Act and some of the safety stuff that we're doing as well. They're just sort of touching base onto the sustainability and social value stuff, and they're just sort of getting their heads around that a little bit more and starting to really sort of think about what that means to them and bringing that into their schemes and stuff. But I think one of the things from a contract point of view is that they've not been doing the back-to-back common language. There's very, you know, they haven't got the procurement specialists and the lawyers together, and actually lawyers are putting loads of Z clauses on, for example, and it's just becoming a massive risk and very adversarial still. So they've got to get past that and get to that standardized approach and working with their team. But I think they've got massive opportunities because they're the contracting authority, so they can mandate the framework. They can look at they could potentially look at how they frame the costing of the framework and stuff, and actually really concentrate on the quality aspects of their and the capacity of the providers and stuff. So there was lots of, I think, of advantages. They do use our healthcare type guidance, our hospital technical notes and building notes and stuff. So they tend to use our similar information. And some of the things I think was quite interesting as well was they're in costs, construction costs, they're ranked around 8th, we're ranked around 2nd. So it was quite interesting the information and the benchmarking data they had around that, and how they said it was very consistent in their findings. So, but as I say, I think they're very advanced on their tech smart stuff. There were lots of robots usage within the hospital, really great wayfinding approach and stuff, very clear. And certainly their advanced technology around hydrogen batteries and things like that they were really sort of pushing the boundaries on. So it was really fascinating. So I think there's some good things that they're doing that they could share with us, and vice versa. So we're definitely keeping up contact with them as well. And we did a master leadership class, and that was quite interesting because that was a 3-hour stint. So, and they don't ask one question, they ask 10 all at once. And so it was like, okay, so question number 1, you know, so you're going through it, but it was really nice because I got invited back to go and be the special guest for them all graduating.
Wow.
Obviously I couldn't go, but that's this month. But obviously wish them all the best and stuff, and really nice to hear that they really nice to be sort of received so well, and them to really really appreciate what we had to say and stuff, and have have those discussions on a global scale, really, to support each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. Well, we've had a couple of statements in the Q&A. Somebody's from Hong Kong on the call, and pleased you enjoyed the visit. We had somebody from Singapore as well, making a positive statement about the early warning provisions and processes. So some synergies here, which is really good. I guess you touched upon a point there around Z clauses and adversarial approach, and I think right at the start of our conversation you talked about the benefit, or one of the benefits of NEC, is that it's helped kind of mitigate disputes and obviously saved costs in that regard through the ProCure frameworks. So there's just a question in here around that, and if you've got any sort of specific examples of how the provisions within the NEC have sort of helped with that. And I guess part of the response to that is likely to be the proactive project management nature of the forms of contract, isn't it, with the early warning notice provisions, etc.
Oh gosh, a good question. Trying to think of a good example, really. So I think I'm trying to think if I'll give you the right example here. But some of the stuff that I think that we do find is where we've had situations where potentially there's the relationship's not going well, there's misunderstanding, miscommunication probably between the parties. What we tend to do as well is what we do in NHS England is we work very closely then as soon as that's flagged up. So what happens is we get a monthly monitoring system, and all our implementation leads will review that, and as soon as there's a red flag, they'll suddenly pick up the phone and say to the partner, what's happening here, give us the background, and we act in an impartial way. So we're looking for the best delivery of the project. So we work very much as NEC wants us to do, and it's that best delivery. So what we tend to do is we then will work with our regional delivery directors and the strategic estates leads who have the link with the trusts, and sort of get their side of the story as well. And between us, and also we'll link in with Crown Commercial Services as well. And between us, we can, depending on the issue, we can then sort of start to triangulate the information, because I think what I've found a lot is there's two sides to every story. So sometimes, you see things come out, and actually when you go and talk to the other side of the story, you start to sort of realize actually there's some differences going on here, or there's a communication, and we've actually been able to bring that relationship back together and really support that trust and that partner to end up sort of having a real strong relationship, because there's been something that's either been miscommunicated or something, or they just needed to even communicate, have that conversation and actually sort of work through the problem together. But we will be there on hand to support that and hold their hand all the way through.
Yeah, that's you absolutely spot on there, isn't it? Sometimes having that initial conversation in the right way helps resolve.
We don't go in there accusing when we hear one side, and we pick up the other side, and then we start to work through it. And sometimes there is a contractual issue that we need to just review. So we might review that contractual issue, we'll bring it to the commercial working group. We try to be, the thing about the NEC in us, we try to make sure there's transparency. So in the NHS, we're very keen on transparency. We have that open book nature, etc., which is very aligned with the NEC as well. So we try and make sure that things are really transparent and understood, and open, so that we can actually sort of work through the problem as well.
Yeah, of course, and I guess sticking them with the contract and the terms and conditions. There's a question here. We could probably do a whole webinar on. Actually, and it's around the use of X22. So negotiating and agreeing target costs in the second stage, or for the second stage of a two-stage approach. And have we had any issues sort of being able to demonstrate value for money in the absence of competition. Gosh, I'm happy to have a go as well.
Yeah, go on. I think we're talking about a little bit about direct award there, are we, with the absence of competition as well? Is that
yeah,
a little bit of that, which obviously there's only certain reasons where you do that, and obviously with the new procurement rules coming out, you have to then publish why you've done it, etc. So there could potentially be more challenge for the trusts and stuff if they are direct awarding, and it's not meeting the procurement regulations requirements to do that. So that's something we have, we do advise on and stuff with trusts. To the mini competition that we run is really slick. We're working alongside doing other things at the same time. So I think that we've been able to very quickly turn it around in sort of 4 to 6 weeks is probably one of our best turnarounds, and it just depends how we work together as a team with the trust. So how we all work through it, but we can work through it pretty quickly. And sometimes as well, direct award, by the time you've done, there's not a lot in it. But then you're paying so much more for direct award because you will be paying the full fee plus whatever the framework fee sometimes is in top. Ours is all included. So it's actually really understanding what you're deciding with your procurement approach as well. So
it's true, and I think on a two-stage approach as well, using sort of early contractor involvement, there is, for me, that it can be difficult demonstrating value for money, which is where should cost models or benchmarks, prices, etc. need to play a significant part. There's also clever ways, I think, sometimes to procure at the first stage in competition, which helps drive value for money for the second phase when trying to set a target cost.
And you don't have to stick with that person, do you, for the second stage? You can change as well. For me, a lot of people seem to think that actually early contractor engagement is more expensive, but we're starting to prove other industries have proved it. Education, motorways, we had the really great one last week proving it. I'm looking to prove it, but I'm seeing so often that the contractors being brought in at REBA stage 3 or 4, then redesigning it. So that's time cost added to the project. Then suddenly they're saying, well, actually, if you did it this way, it'd have been cheaper, or you've got less standard, we could standardize more around this. And I think with a lot of the drivers that we're having to balance now, from net zero to MMC to social value, all the various things that we're doing, they actually know what the market innovation is and stuff, and they're able to bring that knowledge to that at those very early stages. So I'm very much an advocate in seeing that the way we are now, we need to change our mindset a little bit and actually bring them in earlier. I call it buildability. Make sure the building is actually buildable and in the best, most advantage efficient way it can be. Bringing them in early gets them to understand the risks, they're involved in the scope, they're helping you to deliver that project, and that we're seeing more and more with schemes as actually a massive advantage on actually delivering your project and within the envelope that you need to deliver it within as well.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with all of that, and even more important given I guess where we're at now with capital budgets being cut, etc. So yeah, I agree. Good response. There we go.
Yeah, and the other thing we've got now as well is with the Building Safety Act, with it does apply to high risk buildings for the hospitals in only in the design and construction phase, but something that's 24 weeks we're adding to a program. And what's that, and the level of information that they require, it is what it is. We cannot say, well, we can't do it, we're not going to do it, we have to do it. But so where you're involving building control, you would then have to involve them if the building meets that criteria. So I think the key thing for me is actually, what can we do? Getting our oven ready projects ready. You can actually, we talk to the BSR, can you, we could lump projects together. We're happy for you to lump projects together, and actually you might get the funding for one and this year and another one the next year will follow on or whatever, but actually lump it together and bring it in and get that process developed and done. So we're going to have to be quite front-footed in some of our projects, because obviously there is a lot of difficulty for trusts around the funding stages, you know, when they get funding, when they have to spend that funding by, etc., which can make it really difficult. So it's how do we think differently to be able to incorporate things like that as well, and what can we be doing at the same time whilst it's in with the building safety regulator, for example, to be reviewed. You know, what other things can we do? I mean, one of the big benefits, for at least we don't have to wait for occupation. We can occupy when we get the handover certificate, but we can't, we don't have that 12-week wait like some other industry areas as well. But this is a lot because we do have a lot of regulation guidance and ways that we do things and competencies from our authorising engineers through to our competent persons, etc. We have frameworks and policies that help mean that we actually it is a little bit less stringent on the hospitals around that occupation stage as well. But there are certain nuances where it does apply, and we do have to register a building, and that's more around where you've got residential and student accommodation. So it's all interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fab. Right, we're in the final couple of minutes now, Helen. So I guess maybe a good one to finish on is around kind of what's next. So what's in store for sort of the ProCure legacy and you know, in 2024 and beyond?
For me, you know, our vision is that we're more than just a framework. You know, I'm head of construction for the NHS. That's my role. I just happen to have a framework that's under our remit, which is a brilliant framework, which allows me and my fantastic team to be able to support the trust in being able to guide them, do good practice, etc. So for me, there's a lot around actually increasing our brand. We're not very good at in the NHS generally at sort of saying, well, you know, we're here, this is us and stuff. But actually sort of really increasing the P23 brand and actually helping people to understand we are more than just a framework. We are here as a supporting arm to our NHS colleagues. You know, we want to do more collaboration, you know, stakeholder engagement, etc. We are working across, you know, making more connections across government and stuff, and actually we're involved in the construction playbook updates. So I've been bringing people in to support on that. We're looking at across digital, across contracts, across payment mechanisms, etc. So there's a whole host of things that the construction playbook is looking at. And one of the agendas that myself and a lady called Henrietta are looking at is also pushing that health and safety side to it as well, which we think would be really good to have that within the playbook as well. I mean, the framework was developed on the construction playbook, so it's really good. The gold standards coming out now, which is based on those 14 policies within it, and actually we already tick those boxes, so we're really looking forward to getting that gold standard framework achievement. And I think, like I said, there's like over 2,000 different frameworks out there, and actually this is a process of actually really identifying those that are really good, are there for the right reasons, pushing the right agendas, etc., and not just there for commercial gain. So I think that is a really good thing that we're getting the gold standard coming out, and I know it's just a matter of time when we will achieve that. I think more guiding and supporting the NHS, you know, new acts, we've talked about the Building Safety Act, for example, making sure that we're getting that advice out there and really helping them to understand and guiding them. You know, and I think, you know, there'll be some more toolkits coming out this year, which will help inform, make decisions. So we're looking at digital one in particular. So I'm looking to write an IEM paper around that and present that at IEM later this year, but that's in a draft process at the moment, which will everybody's really excited about it. All the partners are going, oh, this is really great, you know. And again, it will have that similar branding to some of the others, but it's about helping support that information. And some of the other thing is repurposing the estate. You know, we know that the embodied carbon, if we can repurpose the estate, that's a real win for net zero. So we're doing things around design compendiums and stuff. This is pulling on my consultant engineer days. So we've already produced a performance spec to help with kit parts, modular builds and stuff, a generalized spec that you can utilize for that, which really supports the best size window for daylight capture, you know, and that standardization of being able to standardize all the various parts to it. So that we've already produced and is out there for the NHS to use. And as I say, we are developing more and stuff. And as I say, you know, look out, we've done some questionnaires about nucleus, and this is where we're starting about looking at how can we start to repurpose the estate that's out there, which obviously, bearing in mind backlog and everything, it's really, really needed. So yeah,
well, of course it is. So plenty on them, and as you said and I've alluded to all the way through this, it's a
I won't be bored.
process. No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Well, listen, Helen, thank you. That brings this webinar to a conclusion, and thanks to everybody for attending and contributing. Apologies if I haven't got to your question, but look out for more webinars. Again, as Helen's already spoken about, have a look on the app as well. It's a good community there. No doubt the webinar will be posted on there, as well as any new activity and conversations that we're all going to have and continue to have as a user group. But finally, one last time, Helen, thank you. I really do appreciate your time. That's been a great conversation. I've loved it.
Thanks,
I hope you
John. Yeah, no, it's been great talking to you, and thanks everybody for coming, and we're here to help.
Okay, thanks, Helen. Bye-bye now.
Bye.